Good morning. Welcome to morning meditations. Couldn't remember what we're calling it. Sorry, I still have this bronchitis. And always, as soon as I start talking, it kicks in. It is better. Slowly getting over it. I've been given a couple rounds of medicine now, and we'll see how it goes. It's this wind. They say, probably heard, April was the highest winds Oklahoma has had in 50 years. And I'm very allergic to everything in Oklahoma, all the tree, the pollen, the grass, all of that. So as soon as I step outside and that wind's blowing, it just gets me. And so I guess that's where it came from. Anyway, that's not why we're here. I want to talk to you today about the past. I guess more appropriately, I want to talk about the present and how the past and even the future, but particularly the past, can get in the way of us being mindful of the present. And I want to talk about some of the ways that happens. It's kind of obvious if you think about it that it does it. We can't live in the present and be in the moment when our thoughts are regularly in the past. The more we think about the past, the more we stay in the past, and we do it more than we think. But the more we are in the past, we're obviously not thinking about staying in the present, which is our goal when we're trying to be mindful. There's obviously a time and a place for being in the past. If you end a big project, it's good to have a kind of a sit down and talk about how the project went and kind of do an assessment so you can learn from that. But then you want to take those lessons and move them forward. You don't want to keep rehashing over and over and over those things. It's good. I've been in therapy. I think therapy is a great thing, and it's good at times in therapy to talk about your past. All of us have things in our lives that our past has affected who we are today. And so it's good to think about those things, talk about those things that have affected who we are today, but then to deal with them and move on. You can't, as you might say, wallow in the past. And that includes, I mean, there's some extremely traumatic things that have happened to people. And sometimes you have to take a good amount of time digging into that. And I understand that. But even then, there's a time to move on. But then there's this constant thinking about the past, living in the past. And by the past, I mean this morning, yesterday, last week, last month, years ago. And a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about the past, things that happened to us, things that we did, things that had nothing to do with our lives. Sometimes it may be political things or world events that we think about. Often it's things that people did to us or things in our family that happened that we weren't even a part of, but other people in our family were part of. When we think about these things, we ruminate about them. And then there are, what's interesting, I think, about this most is, well, I'll come back to that in a second. the more time that we spend in the past, we're distracted from the present. And so we're making a trade-off. Am I going to think about this moment and how effective I can be in this moment? Or am I going to think about all of the mess of the past? And every minute that we spend thinking about the past, we're missing living and experiencing this moment now. It's not a great trade-off. The part that's interesting to me is generally when we think about the past, we think about when we say, living in the past, we think of negative things. We think of bad things that have happened, troubles, bad relationships, bad things in relationships. We think of forgiveness. That's a big one. We maybe need forgiveness. Maybe we've done something and people have or have not forgiven us for those things. And we let those things spin around in our minds, and we create stories or relive old stories. Or maybe people have done things to us and we maybe need to forgive them, and we think about those. The easiest thing to do is just do that. Forgive them, talk to them, make that forgiveness, and then it's done with. But a lot of times, otherwise we'll just think about it and let it keep coming up in our mind over and over and over and over and over for years, decades sometimes. We think of these negative stories and we keep rehashing them and rehashing them. There's another type of living in the past that is, I think, equally as dangerous. And that is, we think of the successes of the past. As Bruce Springsteen saying, our glory days. We think about the great times of the past. And sometimes we spend a lot of time thinking about that, how good things used to be. And we can turn that into a negative. We can think, oh, it used to be great and times are bad now. And that's how we bring it into the present. Things today are bad compared to then when things were so wonderful. But I think a lot of times what happens is we think about the past and we think of all the credit that we have earned, or the good that we've done, the successes we've had, and how it's maybe brought us to where we are, the good things we've done. The successes we've had, we've come to this place because of all of the effort that we've put into it. We pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps. We worked hard. We got to where we are today because of all of this hard work and positive effort and the reward for our efforts. And kudos for all of that. That's great. There's nothing wrong with being rewarded for your hard work. That's wonderful. But when we spend our time thinking about the success, or when we spend our time thinking about the failures, either way, we're spending time in the past. Always like songs and music, and now instead of Bruce Springsteen, I'm thinking about Janet Jackson, who's saying, what have you done for me lately? We can spend time in a relationship, and in the relationship we can either drag up all the bad things, or we can drag up all the good things. And if we're dragging up all the bad things, it's usually all the bad things the other party did, whether it's a, a significant other relationship or a business relationship, whatever it is, we're dragging up all of the bad things the other person did, or the other company or whatever. We're dragging up all the bad things. When it's uh, when we're thinking of ourselves, we're usually bringing up all the good things. Think of all the wonderful things I've done for you. And we kind of minimize the bad things. But in truth, we're probably both a little more equal in the good to bad ratio. Now, there are times when someone's gravely at fault. Even then, that's where we can exercise forgiveness in the appropriate circumstances. There are some times when we need to, we can forgive and not repair toxic relationships, right? But we don't have to relive the good or the bad. The danger in reliving the bad is we're constantly, one, living in the past and reliving the trauma over and over and over and over. We actually do this in our brains. We wire the circuitry to relive the negative experiences over and over emotionally. And that does something bad to us when we do that. The more we think about it, the more we relive it, it damages us mentally and emotionally. When we think about and relive all of our positive experiences, it has the effect of overinflating our sense of greatness about ourselves. And in those circumstances, we might need a little humility check. The great Stephen Covey talked about emotional bank accounts, and we make, emotional deposits and withdrawals with relationships. And we do it with ourselves as well. And of course, we want to have more deposits than withdrawals. But what if every single morning you started at zero? Every single morning you started at zero. So what I've done in the past is irrelevant. And I need to start today with a fresh slate. Because that's how life really is. You really start over each day. We carry our reputation, but sometimes that's not even a true barometer, is it? Because there are some people who did something wonderful 20 years ago and they're still living on that credit. And people give them too much credit for the one or two positive things they did 20 years ago. They're still living off of that fame, so to speak. And it's not a true barometer of who they are. And on the flip side, there are some people who did something bad 10, 20 years ago, and we're still holding it against them. And it's not a true barometer of who they are. There are a lot of people who have had to leave town. I know a lot of people, especially who live in small towns, are like, I've got to get out of this town because people still see me as the kid. People still see me as this young person who doesn't know anything. And maybe it's, they're 40 years old, but people still see him as a little Johnny, And they're like, I've got to leave because I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot, I know a lot, and I have to leave. And I know people who've left jobs for the same reason. Maybe they came into their job at more of an entry-level person. They've grown for 20 years, they've been in that job, and people still see them as the entry-level person. And they've had to leave jobs just so they can get some respect. So we live in the past in so many ways. So today I want us to come to the present. Who are you today? Who are you today? And how are you carrying the past with you? I want you to just close your eyes for a moment. Let's just take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Today, we're not going to do any type of special breathing exercise. I just want you to be comfortable where you are. I want you to relax, comfortable, be still. Just be aware of how you feel right now. Just be quiet for a moment. I want you to focus your thoughts on what kind of person you are today, not yesterday, not last week, not last month, not this year, but right now. How do you feel? Who are you today? Just answer that question for yourself. Who are you today? Now I want you to ask yourself, how much have you been thinking about the past? Have you been thinking about your own past, past of others? Have you been bringing it up to them? Have you been using the negative past, overinflating the positive past, living on the past, the negative, the positive? How have you been using the past in your thought life? I want you to just take a moment and be gentle with yourself and forgive yourself for living in the past. Just accept that it's completely normal. It's completely natural. It's something everybody does. And just talk to yourself and give yourself a little pep talk for a moment and just say, I forgive myself. I'm normal. I forgive myself for living in the past. I'm going to make an effort when I catch myself living in the past to bring myself to the present and to allow others to live their lives in the present, to give them that respect. Just think about that intention for a moment. Now think of the life that you get to enjoy by spending it in the present. Think of the benefits and the wonderful things that are happening in your life and in the world in the present. Think about the people, the things that you love, that you're grateful for in your life right now. Thank you very much. I've almost made it to the end without coughing. Too bad. Hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and be present, be in the moment, be mindful. Thank you. We'll see you next week.